Ways and ways. All right, no, I know how to start this. Yesterday, we had a full-on discussion about Rate That Fighter. Full-on discussion about Rate That Fighter. I'm not going to call it an argument because I don't argue with nobody but my wife, and that doesn't happen much. But we had a full-on discussion about Rate That Fighter in my rating system. So before I get kicked off with rating this next fighting game that we have, I want to go back and go over the rating system and rating scale. So let's start by looking in the Discord on what I have already. Let's go check that out. All right, over here, and so we got into it when we saw this scale right here. We saw this scale, and I'm pretty sure I'm gonna have to do this again. But we saw this scale, and I'll do one day I'll do it even further detail. But we saw this scale, and someone said, I can't believe, what game was it? Where Power Rangers, here it is. Power Rangers Battle for the Grid. There's a Power Rangers Battle for the Grid is amazing. It's awesome. OM freaking G. Why is it so far down the line? I don't understand. It is way better than Killer Instincts. It's way better than King of Fighters 97. It's way better than Street Fighter Alpha. And I was like, no, I think I was pretty daggone fair with my ranking system here. And what I've done here is I've come up with something that's really, really simple, which is saying this what qualifies a particular game to be great. What are some things that draw me in? Now, this is opinion based. I'm not gonna lie to you. It's definitely opinion based. However, I allow the community, you guys, to chime in and say, hey, I don't like this, I don't like that. I do this live, okay, on Twitch. I do this live on Twitch. And so there's an opportunity for people to say, hey, this is the reason why I think it should get a higher score than that. Anywho's, I digress. Let's get back over here. We're looking at this, and let's start with the very first thing that I personally look at. I look at the intro. And right now, this is one of the very first games that I rated, was the original Street Fighter. The first thing that we rate is the intro, okay? And so here's the reason why. I am a arcade kid. I grew up in the arcades. My mother gave me $1 and said, hey, go over there to the arcade while I go shopping in the mall. And there's nothing wrong with that. I think a lot of us grew up that way. Or for that matter, your parents just drop you off at the arcade. And the first thing you do is look around. You're looking around. What am I going to play? What I'm going to play? And then boom, it catches your eye. Not because the gameplay necessarily, it's because of that intro. And there's tons of games out there. You're like, yo, that intro was mad dope. I can't believe this game looks that great. I want to play it. So that's the very first thing that I rate, and I think that should be weighed highly because that's part of the aesthetics of the game. And shoot, even now, these games aren't even in the arcade, and we still have game intros. CJ, BS. What are you talking about? Hold on, let me show you. Let's go to YouTube. Street Fighter 5 intro. And OM freaking G. It's one of the here we are. Here we are. Street Fighter 5's intro. 30th anniversary of Street Fighter. 35th. Well, it's not. It's the 35th now but it's the 30th anniversary. They had this intro. If I was in the arcade and I CJ Berry was to play Street Fighter, I would see this intro. I'm like, whoa, what's going on with Ryu? That's super duper dope. I want to play this game. You see what I'm talking about? And this immediately draws me in to wanting to play this game. Like, what is going on? And I want to be hyped up every single freaking time when I come to the arcade to play games. And that starts with the intro. That definitely starts with the intro. All right, so it is what it is. It's freaking amazing. That's just an example. That's just an example. But and we haven't rated Street Fighter V, but that stuff like that is things that draw you in and say, hey, I want to play that game. I want to play that game. Honestly, I don't think that was an intro. I think that was it was cinematic opening. Boom. We are. So now, back over here. Yeah, that is extremely important. Why wouldn't I rate that? That's the thing that draws you in and says, hey, either A, I want to buy that game, that's modern times, or B, I want to play that game. That's past. So that's why it gets 20. And a lot of games, they ultimately kind of fail because of just the intro by itself. And again, I think I grade fairly. The next thing that we go off of is the character select screen. And character select screen is really, really important also because, again, it makes you say, hey, I'm going to stick to this. I don't want to be annoyed with this game, you know. I think a great example of that is the original Mortal Kombat. Yeah, that character select screen was a little shaky there. I think we all can agree with that. It's classic and all that great stuff, but it was very plain Jane, humdrum, and you're like, hindsight. Was it good for its time? And we'll get to that a little bit later. Yes, it was freaking amazing for its time, but no, we're not freaking doing this. You know, like for what it is now. Nah, that's not what we're doing, player. Next thing is character viability. Okay, and folks go, all the characters are playable. No. It's more so how many playable characters do I have in this game? Okay, it's as simple as that. And how many of them are cloned characters? So, for example, Street Fighter, hey, they got a whole lot of guys that do a whole lot of the same stuff. We got a whole lot of Shotos. That's why you have the term Shoto when it comes to fighting games. It's the character that has the quarter circle punch, fireball, quarter circle back, spin kick with the dragon punch. And in Street Fighter, there's a lot of those guys. Or for that matter, there's a bunch of guys that look exactly the same. Again, Mortal Kombat, they're notorious for having a whole bunch of ninja characters, right? All they did was a little palette swap and said, boom, here goes a new character. So when you think about that, that goes straight into character design. Like, are these characters designed different? Is it just a palette swap? Is it just a dude, the same little sprite, or for that matter, the same little CGI figure, if you want to call it that? Let me know in the comments below what that's called, because I totally forgot. Oh, you that character. Are they just changing the hairstyle, Ken and Ryu? Are they just changing the color? You know, freaking Mortal Kombat. What is that character design? And also, what is that character style? I have to give it up to SNK games when it comes to like King of Fighters. There's a lot of characters on there, and they seem like they have a whole lot of different styles. Tekken is another one. The only problem I have is like characters like Kuma and Panda, Tiger and Eddie, exact same moveset. However, they have a huge array of characters on that game. So it's like they have the viability and the character design and the character movesets that are all different. So I'm like, yo, that's really dope. So I get points off of that. Then game mechanics. The game mechanics here, I know people are like, well, game mechanics, it can mean anything. Well, for me, it doesn't mean, this one mechanic, it has a dash. No, that's too much to analyze, right? and saying that kind of goes into that meta, and I'm like, we're not paying attention to meta. Some people say that's important, but I don't think that's important. Game mechanics for me is this easy to pick up? Is it easy for me to understand how this works? For example, Guilty Gear Strive. Amazing game. I love it. The learning curve is a little steep because something as simple as Roman cancels, you cannot really play that game unless you truly understand how those Roman cancels work. Whereas versus Tekken 7, you have your rage arts, all it is a push of a button, or whatever input that they have for Tekken 7 to make it work. You have two options there. So that's kind of where I'm coming from with game mechanics. Or for that matter, hey, is it really easy to pull this off? So with Street Fighter, for Street Fighter, the original Street Fighter, there we go. For the original Street Fighter, you see I gave it a low score there, right? Why? Because it's almost impossible to get the freaking move out, right? You can't throw a fire, but when you do, it takes off a lot of damage, but it's just not freaking good. All right, the next thing we talk about is game design. All right, in game design, CJ, what do you mean by that? Because isn't all this already the game design? Yes, it is, but I'm more so talking about things that make the game the game. So the game design, it refers to, hey, what does the background scene look like? What does when it transitions from the character select screen to the versus stuff? What does that look? I didn't think those needed like backgrounds and versus screens and select menus and all that good stuff. I didn't think they needed their own thing. I just lumped it up on. Man, why did I get stuck like that? I lumped the game design all into one thing there. It's as simple as that. That's just what I wanted to do. I just wanted to lump it into one thing right there. To me, that made sense. And instead of just breaking down the nickel and diming right there, right? It's all one thing. Character customization options. Now, this is one. Technically, it kind of goes up here with viability and stuff like that, but I intentionally separated this because I think that's an important thing. Some people will buy a game just because you're able to customize the character in there, or there's a particular costume. And I think it deserved its own thing. Now, here it is. Things like, sorry Street Fighter, sorry Mortal Kombat, if it's just a palette swap, it's gonna be a hard no. However, if there's like outfit changes and able to customize the character, you're probably gonna get a high mark, like Tekken, or for that matter, Mortal Kombat 11. That's one that's like, it's kind of doing palette swaps. However, they have different costumes at the same time, and it allows you to customize it and put whatever combination of articles of clothing or armor onto your character. So, yeah. And then music. Music is another one. So music doesn't make or break a game. However, that does definitely help push what that game is and how that game feels in general while playing. Everybody knows the sounds of Street Fighter. Everybody knows the sounds of Tekken and Mortal Kombat, and they understand that. Was that sound memorable? Did that sound stick with you? If you hear it, do you go, that's this game. That's that game. So I think that's important, but it's not like a 20, it's a 15. I think that's cool. I think that's good enough. And then we have outro and game endings. CJ, why did you do that? Well, here it is. Sometimes I enjoy playing games by myself. Who doesn't enjoy playing games by themselves? I know I do. And so what's motivating me to play the arcade mode? What's motivating me to continue on while I'm playing by myself and trying to learn the game and not in training mode? I think that's important. Do I want to take the time out to learn the characters, each and every individual character, so that I can beat the game, so I can know more about them in their background? I think that's really important, and that's definitely a thing in fighting games. I think that's really important. So, to make my point, Tekken 7, they don't have game endings. And I'm like, what? Why would you do that, Tekken? Now I have no desire to take each one of these characters through arcade mode, and I'll get to the next thing right after that because it goes hand in hand. That's extremely important for me to continue to play outside of playing online. Or for that matter, what if there's an outage? What am I gonna do? Well, yes, of course there's gonna be of course I'm gonna do training. Of course I'm gonna sit here and play with my buddy. But sometimes I just want to play it against the computer. Yes, there's a CPU and training mode, and you can do that all day. But I want to play going to the next person. I want to try. I want to try to get the high score. I want the challenge. So there's that. So now that goes right into replay value. You know, that definitely helps. You know, if it has a couple game endings or special outros going into the game, that definitely makes me want to come back and play over and over and over and over again. Why wouldn't I want to do that over and over again? Is that making sense? You know, and then wait, hold on. That goes to, does it have any other things that it brings to the table? So like Grand Blue Fantasy Versus, man, there is so much to do in that freaking game. Tons of stuff to do in that game. You have a little RPG mode, you got a trials mode, you got team battles, you got a lot of stuff. Same thing with Tekken. What really brought me into the fighting game culture is, you know, or community, I guess you can say. Tekken 3, it had Tekken Force mode, it had Tekken Ball mode, it had, man, it had team battle. It had a lot of stuff. It had a lot of stuff in it, so it made me want to continue to play the game. So I think that's really important. And then lastly, in this part, I have overall look and feel of the game, because, you know, sometimes the game, each part individually, not that great, but together, it makes a good thing. Or for that matter, it has a whole lot of good ideas, but those good ideas coming together made a okay game. You know, I think Fighting X Lair is a great example of that. It has a great look, has a great feel, like in all these other departments, but when it actually comes together, it's like, okay, it's mediocre, right? So the next part of this is extra credit categories. All right, this is where it makes up for a lot of different things on here, right? So does it have additional gameplays and mode? Yes, I know that's kind of like replay value, but this helps some of those modern fighting games out there that's all they do. They don't have really nothing to it. What makes me keep on coming back to this game? So like Soul Calibur, I think that's one that's like that. Soul Calibur 6 specifically. I'm not saying it's a bad game, but it needs a little help. It needs a little push. Boop, push it over the edge, right? Does it have a story? Boop, push it over the edge just a little bit. Mortal Kombat 9 is a great example of that. It has an amazing story. Whereas when you look at something like Tekken 7, it has a okay story. They had that little, so I wasn't really feeling their story mode. It was kind of like garbage, right? And then online gameplay. Now this is where we can argue. You know, we talk about net code. We talk about you know how laggy it is. For me, obviously I play online, but also the thing that I want to do with that is, when it comes to online gameplay, if the game was made, if it was done before 2009, that was the fighting game, I guess you could say, renaissance or reemergence with Street Fighter 4, because that had online game. All the other fighting games before then, it really didn't have true online gameplay. So if it was done before 2009, I'm going to be like, no, it automatically gets 10 points. That also helps boost those older games that we know and love. It automatically gets 10 points. All right. However, there's games out there that don't have rollback netcode, or it's glitchy, Tekken, you know, or it's very, very, very laggy, Street Fighter 5. That's where we go over here. We give it a little points, but we don't, you know, yeah. But ultimately, it doesn't affect the game itself, okay? It doesn't affect the game overall. It just gives it a little bit of boost that it needs. And then lastly, this still applies to, was it done before 2009? Was it good for its time? Was it good for its time? If it was done before 2009, we'll base it off of that. But if it's 2009 until now, I consider that a modern game. And sorry, it won't get any points. It is what it freaking is. Don't argue with me. This is mine. If you want to do it, you do it your way. But this is how I do mine. So, so that's overall. That's how I end up doing that. So now let's go over here to where I originally was at. Where is it? Where is Power Rangers Battle for the Grid? After I explained all that stuff, and we were going back and forth and having a discussion, I showed them this this rating, and they're like, "Oh, you're right." I'm like, "Yeah, I'm doing this fairly. I'm being very fair." The thing that got this game a C. So you got to see it's 75. Again, I don't think it's a bad game. Just because it had this rating here doesn't mean that I won't play it. And I play Power Rangers Battle for the Grid. I love that game. However, the thing that killed it, its intro. It didn't have an intro. It had this little screen that turns on and says, "Hey, I'm here," but it didn't have a true intro. So it got some failing points there. But if you look at, and then it did the same thing with outro and game ending, it didn't have that either. And then the replay value, I was like, come on, guys. Are we really playing Power Rangers Battle for the Grid over and over again? And they're like, no, we're not. And it's like, yeah. So three categories here that didn't allow this game to be great. And then, even then, look, here it is, because I had shown and explained this to everyone yesterday also. Even if I change this to, let's just say 15, has great replay value, it's still a C. I just cannot do it. I can't do it. I couldn't do it. And I'm not willing to change some of these other scores. Replay value, where it, I don't want to use the word fail. Replay value is where it struggled. Outro and game endings, and the intro. Other than that, everything else is pretty good. Like, dang, CJ, you're right. I know I'm right. That's why I made this. Don't at me. But anywho's, yo, how do you feel about these? How I'm rating this? Would you add something to this? Would you take away something within my rating chart? I'm not changing my rating. I've had this for 2 years now, and I've rated like over 40 fighting games or so. I'm all right. I'm probably exaggerating. Probably have like 30 odd some. But anyway, neither here nor there. Where would you take away? Where would you add to this if you were to make your own? Let me know in the comments below. Don't forget to like and subscribe. Boom. Hey, you made it this far. Make sure you subscribe and make sure you like this video right here. Also, follow me on my social media platforms that I have there. Instagram, Twitter, Facebook, even Twitch. MD Soul, everything. Thanks. Have a good one, y'all.